Good evening. Welcome back to another edition of Beyond the Backstage Pass. You have come to us on a very special night. I am your host, Vince Edwards. You may know me from Sound Image Productions. I also have a couple closed roadie groups on Facebook, one called Death by Loadout, another called The Backstage Pass. Come check us out. We get up to some fun over there. Listen, why I said it was a special night is, you know, you guys have been tuning in the last many weeks, couple months really. And we've been really busy. And I say to you, oh, I just sat down and blah, blah, and I'm working, blah. Today is like that on steroids. I have a shop full of employees working right now. I've got all the lights on. We stopped to do this because our guest tonight is very, very special, and we're very fortunate to have him. But we are slammed. Like, I can't even tell you. I'm pushing out 7 shows right now. We got everything from Def Leppard to putting up stages out at Outside Lands for Lizzo. And I mean, we're going for it. So, but we didn't want to not show up and we appreciate you guys tuning in with us this evening. We have our very special guest host and wonderful dear friend of mine, the loudspeaker designer legend, the one and only Bernie Broderick. How are you, sir?
I'm very good. Well, you're getting very good.
All right, I wanted to get you.
Thanks for the Morgan contribution, by the way.
Listen, buddy. I ask all of our guests if they want any special food or drink to be on the set. I get Mikey his little flavors, and I realized when I was out buying stuff,
I'm rolling my own.
I was like, oh, I hadn't hooked my dear brother Bernie up. So I got you your spiced rum and a big old thing of Coca-Colas, because now you enjoy that. And
Thank you, sir.
So that was the least I could do. It was my pleasure and honor.
Thank you.
You'll be taking care of comments for me tonight, by the way. It looks like we got a lot of people already chiming in.
Absolutely.
I wanted to say hello to, well, first of all, to all of you for tuning in. Clint Wensley, John Delray, I was on the phone with him today. Lovely man, one of my dearest friends. Charlie Zaricki, Scott Cheney, all you kids, Susan Kearney. But Charlie, thanks for sending us the lovely gifts today. Bernie just got his box.
Yeah, I was going to make a mention of it there. I just got it when I came in, and I was like totally blown away.
It's just too good to us. And he's the godfather of this show and a badass, the madman from Michigan. And his career is legendary in the things he's accomplished. And so we love Charlie Zaricki, and we just want to let you know thank you for your constant and continued support. You are a brother and a half.
For sure.
Thank you, Charlie.
I haven't looked through the box yet. I opened it. I saw a bunch of stuff in there. I'm going to wait till we're done, and then I can
it's
go
what it
through.
does. Just out of nowhere, stuff comes, and it's super kind and sweet.
Fantastic.
So we do a little back and forth thing. Recently, I sent him a big old basket of Napa wine gifts. I don't know.
There you go.
Crazy. And I think it made him and his wife and his people happy because he does that for us all the time. So,
fantastic.
Two-way street on that one. This evening, we have a tremendous guest. We're really fortunate to have this wonderful guest. We're going to do a quick little bit of housework, and then we're going to get right to it. What do you got going on, buddy?
Yeah, man. Well, first, like I said, I wanted to thank Charlie for his generous gifts for us. That's it's always nice to get something.
Yeah.
You know. Wanted to talk a little bit about last week's activities. We had a pretty badass rainstorm there for about 36 hours
This is
straight.
Awesome. I loved it.
It never stopped for 36 hours.
I couldn't have been happier. I loved it. You could have just kept going as far as I was concerned. And the city, or at least here where we're at, handled it really well. I know not all of California have fared as well, but our flooding and stuff was to a minimum. And like you said, it was a straight downpour. And it was just wonderful. It cleaned all of our production vehicles.
Yeah.
I was really pleased by that. We got all these big, like 36-foot production vehicles in the back. Bernie owns 2 of them. I own 1 of them. And they'd been sitting there getting, all the smoke and fires that happen in California. And we're near some other industrial areas here where guys like grind for making cabinets and countertops
stuff like that.
and stuff. Yeah. And it's not uncommon for our cars to get pretty laden in crap. That rain just rinsed everything off pretty and nice. I really enjoyed it. Yeah. But mostly to get our reservoirs up, get some snow on the mountains.
Sure.
To deal with this real serious water shortage that we have, it's extraordinary. And so that just made me as happy as could be. By the way, I just have to quickly say, I'm madly in love. I've been totally the terriblest husband ever. I've barely been able to reach out to my girl. we have a pretty communicative relationship. You know, she's down in the Monterey area, and we get together on the weekends because we're both. She runs her business, I run this business. But I'm madly in love with this woman, and I haven't been able to check in with her like I normally would because I've simply been too busy, and today was no exception. So I wanted to say that I'm madly in love with you, Jackie. You're the bestest girlfriend I've ever had in the whole world. I'm crazy about this woman. All right, I'm sorry.
If it's like a video game, you'd see like the little brownie points going.
It just happened.
Just picking up on the top there.
She checked in, and I'm crazy cuckoo coconuts about her, as you well know.
Well, we did have, the rain wasn't all good because we did have a really soggy loadout out at Napa, to say the least. It was the last weekend.
Soggy, yeah. Well, so that was Death Cab for Cutie and some other artists. Yeah. And we had to pull out literally in the rain. And this is on a massive polo type ground area. Yeah. I don't know how to explain it, but it's massive. And of course that implies lawns and we had what was it, a 60 by 60 stage out
full
there
covered,
with
wings,
with,
everything.
Wings and roof and the whole complement, and all that had to come out, which is now in my backyard over here, which is super fun for me. So
it's made its presence known.
That was work till 5 in the morning type day, and that's part of rock and roll. Most of the people that are in this building right now, myself included, my brother, have been going at it close to a month now straight. And that's one of those good problems. I'm not whining.
No,
sore
sure.
and tired and getting a little grumpy. But it's rock and roll. We're going in November. We'll go into the slower season here in a minute. Although I just booked 3 more stages and 5 more shows. So,
well, we don't really know what's going to happen this November
this
because
might be a different one.
Yeah, because everything was so rolled up and put away for so long that maybe many of the events that would ordinarily not happen over the winter may just pop up and people may decide to go do them.
It could be very hit or miss.
It could be very hit or miss.
But we'll be there regardless. And we're a 365 a year company.
Yep.
And none of my gear discriminates. It doesn't care what the date is or what the talent is. As long as the check clears, we'll be there doing what we do. So it's just one of those good problems. What else you got?
So Outside Lands is out being built.
It's out being built.
And Pat O'Doull's out there.
Our good friend Pat O'Doul, who's usually appointment viewer and in the mix with it on the chat. Yep. But everybody, Pat's not with you guys tonight because he's building a very large stage for a very large show in Golden Gate Park, which is 7 stages, about 100,000 people, called Outside Lands, which will be a full weekend killer-ass show. Yeah. And so we're happy for Pat that he's out doing what he does for a living. He's a professional. He's an IATSE guy. So, the whole, when you work for the city of San Francisco, that's IATSE all the way.
Absolutely. And on a sad note, we want to say send condolences or Herbie Herbert's passing.
Herbie Herbert. If you don't know who Herbie Herbert is, guys, Herbie Herbert passed the other day. Herbie Herbert is a legend in this game. I came up knowing him through knowing Benny Collins, working with Benny Collins with Journey. Herbie Herbert is I don't even know how to explain him. Just know this: the reason that concert stadiums, in my opinion, are the way they are has a lot to do with Herbie Herbert and his team, Nocturne, and many folks. Matter of fact, one of the gentlemen with me right now can speak to that. I'm pretty sure our guest this evening. But Herbie was a very special man. I hadn't seen him for a couple of years since another legend's last loadout, which of course is a funeral for an important person in our industry. But Herbie, Santana, the Tubes, Huey Lewis, very, very important cat, and he's gone now. And by the way, if you can hear yelling and screaming and stuff going into boxes, that's just Sound Image putting on shows, all right? So,
it's an immersive show we have this evening.
So just know this whole building is hot and going, and thanks for bearing with us. But we will miss Herbie, and a lot of people will. Certainly, I had some of my dear friends from around the country reaching in, thinking I might know a little more than others because I live so close to Herbie here in the Bay Area. But I didn't. I just know that Herbie had an illness, and he was a man of a certain age, and it was his time. But he certainly left a mark on our industry, was an incredible person, and he certainly built a lot of careers and made a lot of money for a lot of people. And I'll miss him, and I know that a lot of people will feel the same. Yeah. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there you go. There's our week. We have pre-week wrap up.
That went pretty quick.
That was good.
Yeah, were you? You good?
I'm doing awesome. Just chugging along out there, and just continuing to move the needle forward, and Yeah, I mean, I'm just having a great time with all these projects that I've been working on, and I know that there's a ton of people over at Infocom now over in Florida. I got I really would like to. I'd like to be there, but I don't. I hate Florida. No offense to anybody, but when you have to go there year after year after year, always stuck in a convention hall, and you're in Orlando of all places.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's something I don't look forward to, but I feel like I will be making a presence at LDI in Vegas in November.
Yeah, I might want to go down with you.
Yeah, I think you should. I think that it'll be great. It's still primarily a lighting show, lighting and video, but audio makes a presence there, and Vegas is hometown territory, and it's close enough that I can be effective. I couldn't do anything in Orlando, but
well, they invited me out to Info, and I said, "You mean the one in Florida?" And they said, "Yeah." I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I have a root canal schedule that I'd rather do, so I'm going to do that because I'd rather have my face drilled on than spend another minute in that fucking godforsaken state." Now I recognize I am sending this out across the whole world. We have people from Japan to Norway, gentlemen, who I've had nothing but the utmost respect for decades now. I doubt he even remembers me coming up because a lot of times he was just too big in the game and I was running around backstage trying to get things done. My brother would always do the talking. I've always explained to him the nature of doing the show by, Judy Garland, Nat King Cole. I mean, think about what I just said to you. Imagine being able to see those bands. Extraordinary. My hair's up on my arm right now. It just, wow. Pretty quickly went and worked his way through the business and ended up at one of probably the best houses I can think of is coming up. It was got with Bill Graham, Bill Graham Presents, and worked his way into putting on concerts, some of the biggest stuff in the world, Day on the Greens, the US Festival, this industry, and the way that you understand it today, or at least in the beginnings of that. And up until recently was the director of production at Live Nation, and in 2020, late 2020, he finally decided to retire after a very accomplished career in the music industry. He is the one and only Ron Bergman. Good evening, sir. It's really a treat. Really, really, truly a treat to have you on, my friend.
Appreciate being asked, Vince.
No, it's just. Your reputation precedes you. The contribution to the live industry and the live production is extraordinary. And I had to get you in here. I would have begged you to come in, so you made it easy for me.
Don't make me beg.
First of all, I know that recently you had some minor health stuff going on. How you feeling?
Good.
You doing better?
Better than I was when I first talked to you, but yeah.
Good. I can totally relate to the back stuff. I know that this is I try to tell the kids when they come in with the stars in their eyes, and I think they think they're going to get rich and hang out with rock stars, and I try to tell them, no, what you're going to get is a bad back and good stories. But they still stay for some reason.
Right.
So I just mentioned briefly about your early experiences coming into the industry, and a question that we largely ask here, we kind of bookend the show with how did you get into the business, and the other side of that bookend is what do you think the future holds for the industry. I kind of explained a little bit of it, but from 64 to 78 you kind of did a few different things. What do you think was the most formative for you coming through that period of time?
Well, a lot of, the experience that I got, so when I went to San Jose State University.
Yes, sir.
And at that time, we're talking late 60s, early 70s, there was a lot of isolation, a lot of people just going to class and being stoned.
Yeah.
And I went out, I just had to go out and start doing something, so I volunteered in the student government to be part of what they called the program board. And within a short period of time, I ended up being the director of the program board. So doing campus cultural and entertainment type events was a lot of experience. I mean, we did some of my early concerts doing like acts like Elvin Bishop, or we did Cheech and Chong at that time. Wow. We did Commander Cody, those kinds of acts, and it was just a good experience because you had to do a little bit of everything, right? So it was like not only booking the talent or booking whatever, but then having to market it and do whatever. So it was like a little hands-on, a little bit of everything.
Well, yeah, what do you, as it relates to that, just as an aside question that's not here, what do you think about how in the nature of our business now, everything has become so specialized? So like an audio guy is just an audio guy. They're not like when we came up, when you kind of did a little bit of everything. You needed to drive the truck, you needed to know how to promote the show, put up flyers, run the slides.
Well, you're right. It's become so specialized. I mean, back in the, back in the 70s or whatnot, it was much simpler. Productions were much simpler. The shows that we, I mean, even going into in the 70s, the Day on the Greens, if you go back and look at them now, they were pretty primitive by today's standards.
That's a good point.
I mean, today you go into Levi Stadium and it's like a construction project, right? You've got cranes in there. It's like you're building a building, really, essentially. So things were much simpler, and like you said, it was the technology has advanced so much as well.
That's true.
And it takes specialty to operate it, and to get it right.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I think it's where I'm a little uncomfortable with it is I find that the more well-rounded an employee is, the more that they can do. When something goes wrong, they can respond to it in an effective way because they have a wide range of experiences. A guy that can drive a big truck, put in a show, run the electric, understand signal flow, to me is a much more valuable person.
And I would agree.
And so we tend to embrace those folks, and the ones that don't, the younger folks that come to us, we tend to put them through the paces. Have them build cable, have them, blow out amps and do crossovers, and all the put them through all the stuff so that when they're finally in the field, they have a really strong chance of being able to be of service when the shit jumps off. As the fan in me, I hope you can indulge me with this one. But the fan in me, I mentioned earlier that you had seen some really special shows over at the Circle Star in San Carlos. Really, at the time, a beautiful place, a really neat place. Dude, you got to tell me what it was like to go see a concert with like Judy Garland.
It opened, in 1964, I believe? 1964. It's about a 3,500 seat room in the round. So and it was when it opened up, it was a music theater. And it was the first show there, which I worked as a volunteer usher, was My Fair Lady, Jane Powell and My Fair Lady.
Wow.
And to think of doing those kind of musical shows in the round, I mean, it was totally different than a proscenium experience, right? So it's like set changes, you'd go black, house would go black, traffic going down the aisles and changeovers and set changeovers. But they also intermixed, music performers. So at that time, in the talking mid-60s, I mean, I got the opportunity to see, Nat King, like I said, Nat King Cole. It was within probably a year before he passed away, but saw Nat King Cole, saw Judy Garland there. It was just...
Well, I mean, let's linger on those artists, because to me, both of those artists are just such... I mean, they're the standard of what they did. They were the top of what they did. Was Nat still, like you mentioned, he was, this was kind of late Nat King Cole's career.
Late Nat King Cole, but he was still
velvety voice.
Oh no, that was a long time ago. But
sure.
as far as I remember, it was in my household. It was a lot of, TV shows. It was like Andy Williams and all these kinds of shows these variety shows, and you'd see Nat King Cole, you'd see Judy Garland on TV, frequently. So getting a chance, and particularly that well known. I mean, the Smothers Brothers were there, the early Smothers Brothers. There was comedians, and it was just a great experience. I mean, in mid-60s, high school, you got a driver's license. There's no computers. There's no cell phones. There's 10 channels on TV to watch. So it's like
11 if you move the rabbit ears the right way.
Well, true. It was before, but you would get to. So it was just, it was a great experience to go do it.
Yeah, must have been a lot of fun. And how the hell did you have? I was in a large market, LA, and we had 5 channels. How the heck did you have 10, sir? This guy's he had an early satellite. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
But that was a lot of channels for back in the day.
He had that big loop thing on his antenna.
Yeah, you said it was the foil in the right
the foil
exact
in
direction.
The right angle, yeah.
Right on. 1978. if I got it correct, 1978, you got with Bill Graham Presents.
Yes.
Talk to us about your first. What was your entry level position working at Bill Graham Presents? How did that happen?
Well, just prior to that, I was working with a company in the South Bay that was doing shows primarily in Santa Cruz.
Sure.
So we were doing a lot of shows at the Santa Cruz Civic. We're talking, this is, 76, 77.
Right next to the police station there?
Right next door to the firehouse.
Yes. Yes.
But the person behind this company was the owner of the Bodega nightclub in Campbell.
Oh, yeah.
He also had Sophie's in Palo Alto. And the guy that was booking the shows then, we were doing shows at that time in Santa Cruz. We were doing like the Police, Bob Marley and the Wailers. We were doing a lot of shows that we really had no business doing.
Yeah.
And that always catches Mr. Graham's attention when that kind of stuff, because Bill Graham wanted to, the Bay Area is his market. He wants to do all the shows.
That's right.
So the booker goes to Bill Graham Presents, and the team of people that we had working doing, the shows in Santa Cruz and Monterey, we went along. So when I first started, I started out doing stagehand work, and primarily we were the Santa Cruz guys. So any of the BGP shows that were happening down in Santa Cruz, we were doing, and that kind of grew into, I think in '78, I did my first day on the green was a Ted Nugent, I think, day on the green.
Wow.
So stage work and primarily that, but I also in that period before I was hired full time was able to get some assignments as a stage manager for some of the smaller shows. And I can remember doing, a Greg Kinn down at Sherwood Hall in Salinas, or something like that. But
yeah.
So
I worked with Greg Kinn for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've done my share of Greg Kinn shows.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of opening act shows, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yeah. He's a special cat. And you mentioned Sherwood Hall in Salinas.
Yes.
Monterey.
Yes.
You're probably familiar with the Catalyst in Santa Cruz, I imagine.
Yeah.
And of course the Civic that you're talking about.
Right.
This is my stomping grounds. This is exactly where I came up with.
Really?
In the early '80s, doing Slayer and DRI type stuff down there, and then we got with Eddie and the Tide and would play at the Catalyst every month and sell that thing out. We had this really die-hard following there, and that's when we went over to Greg Kinn, working with those folks. It had to be a lot of fun. Did you enjoy the times back in the?
It was a pretty wide open time. It was a great. I lived in at that time. I lived in Los Gatos, so I was on the other side of the hill.
Yeah.
But
beautiful area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a great place.
Yeah, really special, really special. You mentioned doing the Day on the Greens. What was the impetus of the Day on the Green? How did that come about? Do you know?
Well, it started before me, so I don't know exactly the impetus, but
how many of them were there?
I think the first one was 75. Was it 75? I'm not sure when. It was. I mean, you'd have to talk to somebody like Danny Scher or something like that.
The encyclopedia of rock and roll. We talked about the US Festival. Were you involved with that?
No. So my role, once I was hired full time at Bill Graham Presents, and so I was hired full time in 1981.
Okay.
And at that time, there was a lot of projects flowing through Bill Graham Presents.
Yeah.
I mean, in '81 and '82 were the Rolling Stones tours. He did the first, tour promoter for the Rolling Stones in '81 through the United States, and they ended up going to Europe. That led and went into first US Festival that Bill did was in '82, I believe. And so a lot of our staff would be off doing Rolling Stones. They'd be out doing this. And so I was hired, and I became the guy that was left behind. And I did the regular show schedule. So
you were holding down the fort.
I was, US Festival was going on in Southern California, and I was doing Genesis at the Greek for 3 nights with the introduction of the Verilight. And it's like,
wow.
So that was pretty much my role for a lot of it. I held down doing the local shows. That was my role.
Well, it's a very important role. I mean, you know, if people understand the amount of work that kind of you mentioned, Bill was not, he was a little greedy when it came to getting as many of the shows as he could to kind of own the area, and was effective because he was good at it and people liked working with him. And so it had to be a lot of fun. Can you talk to us about, I mean, I mentioned that you went on to become the production director for Live Nation Concerts, which is quite a responsibility. Can you describe for people that don't understand what that means? What exactly was kind of the job description of that? What was
within the organization, so the production group are the people that are responsible for interfacing with tours. We're the local access. We get them in, we get them out.
Yeah.
And as the production director, besides having a role of having specific shows that I would do, I also oversaw the department. And in the department, we had a staff of people. And so it was coordinating, scheduling, getting people to be in the right place at the right time, making sure that we're not killing each other, trying to get from point A to point B to do that.
Yeah.
And over time, I mean, our market share grew. I mean, it started out, Bill Graham Presents was primarily Northern California. And into the 90s and into the early 2000s, I mean, our office in San Francisco was covering Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, Colorado,
Western United States,
Utah, Nevada, and California. So we were doing upwards of, I want to say, probably at the peak, 400 to 500 events a year. And
my goodness.
So having to have people be in all those places, and it was, at that time, it was one thing to do shows in our own market. I mean, we had a team of people, we had the resources, it was very easy to do.
Yeah.
And then, but when you start going and being a promoter, doing a show in Boise, Idaho, or doing a show in Spokane, Washington, well, you have to rely on a lot of different things, right? And so you go out and, you know, I would fly to this city and I would, you know, arrange with the building and everything. You have to rely on the building to supply a lot of the things that in California we would take care of at Bill Graham Presents. So it was, I mean, I loved that part of it. It was great. And then just the challenge of doing something. I mean, doing production work and I mean, organizing as a production manager or a promoter representative or whatever you want to call them, it's pretty, I don't say it's cut and dry, but for every show, it's pretty much the same. The elements are the same. The music's different, but the elements, the pieces that come together, so how you do it. And it becomes somewhat routine. I mean, you know, going into an arena or, you know, then, you know, of course, amphitheaters came online and that's a whole nother move. But being able to, you know, have the opportunity to do these shows, it was just a great experience. Like I said, I loved it. But keeping track of all this stuff and being the one thing about being on the promoter side is when you're on a tour side, you're dealing with the same production every day, right? You go in and out of buildings, you rely on it. When you're the promoter side, well, every show's different, right? I mean, you're doing a show today, but you've got like 3 other shows coming in the next 4 or 5 days, so you have to make sure those are advanced. So it's being able to, you know, compartmentalize and be able to have this show here, this show here, this show here,
sure,
and keep up with the communications to make sure when it, you know, by the time you get to the day of the event, if you've done your job, well, hopefully you shouldn't have too much to do, right?
Yeah.
Other than fend off any last-minute problems. But
right.
It's not for everybody. Right.
Oh, no, this is a high-pressure situation, I would imagine, and particularly from the Live Nation perspective because they have such a large part of the market. I mean, you just mentioned you did 400 to 500 shows. I do 150 here a year, and it kicks my ass on a pretty regular basis. So I'm in awe.
This was pre-Live Nation, but it was, you know.
This is Bill Graham.
This was Bill Graham.
Yeah, that's an extraordinary amount of work.
I couldn't help think that you were doing that all without computers. Like you didn't have a laptop database.
When I started, it was a yellow pad and a
Yeah.
calculator, right?
Yeah,
That's pretty much.
Folder after folder.
There was
after
no
folder.
computers. There was, fax machines were like, oh my God, fax machines, because otherwise you were waiting for the mail.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I need that rider. Well, it hasn't come in the mail yet, right? So it's like,
But even in the days of the fax machine, did they tend to send you the old writer?
The wrong writer.
Yeah.
Wrong writer.
Oh, this isn't the wrong catering, right? It's like,
It's still a problem, regardless of the
Correct
technology.
writer, wrong fax number.
Yeah, right.
oh yeah, I sent it to you last week. Well,
Never came. Never came. What did you find the most challenging about that? Would it be the logistics of the coordination of just getting trucks and people to places? Was it the marketing? Was it what?
I mean, well, because we dealt with just the physical aspect of the show primarily, and it was, when you're doing that many events, the big thing for me was just hoping, because when you're advancing however many shows you're working on at any given time, 4 or 5 or whatever shows, in my role, I'm like the spoke, right? The information comes through me, and then I disperse it to the different areas that really need to have it.
Okay.
Well, when you're doing that many shows, I'm getting information, I'm sending it out, I'm just hoping everybody's paying attention more than anything else.
Yeah.
I never did anything by myself. This is not just me. It took a team of people to do this. And I was very fortunate at Bill Graham Presents and all the other entities just to have really good people. And it's
Critically important.
all of us in this business, it's almost like, we're like carnies or something, right? It's not like a job.
Yeah.
It becomes your life, and it's not like you work Monday through Friday, and
It's the one industry when somebody asks you why you do what you do, and you say, I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, it's certainly.
I love it.
When I
Even on the hard
loved it.
days.
I loved the variety. I loved that, like, one week I might be in the office for most of the week, and then you'd be another week and I'd be at Shoreline Amphitheater or something, and then I'd be at Oracle Park and doing a show there or whatever it was. So every week was different. It was never the same. It was never routine. And the role as production director, I mean, I really had both. I had. I looked at show work as being project-oriented, right? So project-oriented in the sense is there's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's a finality to it. I mean, you get to see the result of that effort.
Yes.
But then as the production director and overseeing staffing and other business issues, so there was a process also that was involved in just managing that department that was covering that much territory. And so for me, like I said, I loved it.
Yeah.
So you must have one tour that pops up into your mind when someone says, what was the tour that kicked your ass?
Oh, you want to go that way? I was going to say his favorite tour.
Well, no, we can do that. History has many favorites.
Tours or shows. I mean, I have shows that stand out in my mind over years that just, and it probably has more to do with my musical taste than anything else.
I'm just talking about like logistical nightmares of.
Well, I'll tell you, probably one of the biggest, this is probably 2006. We did the Rolling Stones in Missoula, Montana.
Oh boy.
I knew that name was going to pop up.
And in Missoula, Montana, there was nothing. There was a football stadium, it was the University of Montana football stadium.
Yeah.
Grizzly Field or whatever it was called. When you're doing, and not only was it, the Rolling Stones, but it was a short build as well. So we had to work around the clock. There's no stagehands. It's also harvest time in Montana. There's no trucks. There's no, all the elements you need to do, you have to, and we had to pull together, and it was just a small team from our office that went and did this, but we had to pull stagehands. We got stagehands from Arizona. We did stagehands from Washington and Arizona.
Wow.
They came in fact, it was Rhino, and they came in and they set up a hostel. They rented a gym at a Catholic school.
Wow.
And they housed everybody there.
Incredible.
It's like firefighters coming in.
We had to,
situation.
all the things that we needed. The backstage, we ended up using the gymnasium was the backstage. So we brought tents, carpets, furniture, all the stuff that we needed. To do the build, we had, one, crane vendors are kind of in short supply in Missoula, Montana. So, but it took, I can't remember if it was like 3 or 4 cranes that were needed to do this build. And so the guy that I got, he had to go out and buy another crane just to do this show.
Wow.
And then on top of that, the access to the field was this little tunnel at the opposite end from the stage end. And to get the cranes in and out, I had to have a tire company be there because we had to deflate the tires on the cranes, deflate them, drive it through. Then we had to rebeat them, inflate them again, let it work, and then to get them out, we had to do the same thing. So it's just that kind of crazy stuff. To me, it was one of the challenge was great, and it was like one thing I'll never forget. It was just a great experience.
All hands on deck.
It was, catering was the worst, but.
But it was a buffalo and deer or something.
So, yeah.
Fantastic.
I want to there's a couple spots in here I want to get with you on. I wanted to ask you about your, there's a family that's known for GP that's kind of legendary, and the Barsodis.
Yes.
And I imagine you spent a lot of time with Peter and Bob and
Absolutely.
and the rest of the gang. What would the Barsodis mean to you? To me, they're kind of a special group of guys, people.
They were
not just boys.
They were a special group. I mean, I got my job because of Peter.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the one that got me hired. I had Peter was, in the production side, he was a unique personality. He was not always easy.
That's true.
To work with, but he was very intuitive. But like I said, there was the good and there was the bad.
That's right. Yeah, I think that's probably a very reasonable and fair way to describe the situation. But they,
But like I said,
kind of an institutional
he got me my
family.
job. He was my in at Bill Graham Presents.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, no, that's not surprising at all. Many, all the years working in the business, I'm sure that you had a lot of opportunity to work with IATSE.
Yes.
And of course, to work with just normal Joes. Do you have any preference or how is your relationship with IATSE and your unique position?
Well, it grew over time. I mean, obviously the attitude of Bill Graham, and when it came to his attitude was always, somebody telling him how much he had to pay somebody or how much he had to hire or whatever was kind of went against his grain.
Yeah.
And it took, so I've been part of working with IATSE the first union agreement that Bill Graham Presents signed was with Local 107, which was here in the East Bay and Oakland and Alameda County.
That's right.
But over time, and particularly the way the business is now, you couldn't exist without an IATSE.
Yeah, I agree.
You could not. You need a trained, skilled workforce to be able to show up in the numbers that you need on any given day. One week you might need 300, and then the next week you might need 20.
Yeah.
So having that ability to have an organization keep people working is critical, and I think, and to have them, they have to be able to live within the economy that they live in, right? So they need to be paid something that is. So I've spent a lot of time. I've been part of negotiations for all the agreements that Bill Graham Presents and going through Live Nation has done. I served as a trustee for Local 107 for their pension fund. So it's like a lot of good people in that group.
Yes,
a lot
I
of
agree.
good people.
I agree. I agree with both sides of the comment, which is sometimes it's a little bit of a struggle to, be told how to run your business from the union point of view, as it relates to when you're bringing a tour into a specific house that is a union house. At the same time, I can't imagine doing most of those places without their knowledge.
You couldn't do it, and I think the amount of money that that Bill Graham was talking about is way different than what Live Nation is talking about. So there's a lot of money being spent. Artists are taking a lot of money out of it, and it's like they couldn't do their shows without the local labor.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. You're absolutely not wrong. And mad respect to the members and team throughout the country and the world with IATSE. I think did they resolve their recent union contract stuff down south yet?
Which one?
The Netflix thing that was going on?
Yeah, I think they did. The last I heard, they had agreed. I haven't heard if it was voted on yet. But.
Well, I hope they're getting what they want, and they work really hard. It's particularly in the Hollywood setup, and with all the live streaming and all the different stuff that has happened recently, the culture on the ground has changed so dramatically that some of those guys are working unreasonable amount of hours, and they should be compensated fairly for that, for their skills. I know for a fact that you were aware of this and that you were friends with one of our brothers that passed recently, tragically, unfortunately, on one of our tours, and that's the one and only, Randy Baja Fletcher. This was a great loss to our industry. There goes the hair again. Can't help it because that one hurt. That's what we do is it can be tricky. It can be, you take your eye off the ball for a second and bad things can happen. How did that affect you?
Randy and I were close.
Yeah.
The one thing about being in this business this long, you develop relationships with people that, I have friends of 30 years, right? And
Yes,
it's 30 and 40 years. Baja, going back to the Brooks and Dunn days.
That's right.
Did a lot of shows. He was an annual in the amphitheaters, right?
That's
I don't know how many of those shows I did with Baja. In the last 10 years, he was with Keith Urban.
That's correct.
He was just the greatest guy. He was, he always talked about himself as just being a yahoo, creating havoc out on the road, right?
Yeah.
And you also, you wanted to you did not want to go on the bus with him when he was breaking out the margaritas, because it would just mess up your day. He was just the greatest guy. I loved working with Bob.
It was a sweet man.
And it was just
knowledgeable.
The news
kind.
of his passing, regardless of how it was, on the job like that, was just, I was sad.
It was extraordinarily sad. I don't know. In some ways, what I knew of the man, I can't help but think that if he had to go and he had any choice in that matter, it might have been the way he would have wanted to. Not necessarily the accident, but in the saddle, as it were, doing what he loved. He was, I would say, universally respected. I don't know a person that is, honestly, I can't think of a person that said a bad word about the man.
He was great to spend time with, but his tour, his cruise, they were always top notch.
That's right.
There was never any drama.
Nope.
They were together, and it was like I said, I look forward to see him coming through.
Yeah, that's right. Him, Opie, he was in a very special class of level of professional of what his job was, and he will be sorely missed. It was a tragic, tragic death and a loss. But all of our best to his family and his friends, and and be safe out there, guys. You know what we do? We play with high voltage and lift up heavy things and work at height and all this, and it just takes a second to kind of lose track of what you're doing and where you are, and bad things can happen. So please remember, largely this audience, Ron, is us. It's mostly for people like us, and so it doesn't hurt to remind folks once in a while that here in our industry, things can turn on you real quick, and we all want to go home in the morning, and we all want to do another show. So please be careful out there. Can I talk to you about the transition that you lived through from BGP to Live Nation? What was that like? Did it feel like, after Bill went away, I know a lot of people thought the heart went out of some things because his nature, the way that he interacted with his people, the way that he did business, and he was a singular type of person. There was nobody like Bill Graham. How was the transition from BGP to Live Nation for you? How did you experience it?
Well, initially, there was always a structure to Bill Graham Presents, and Bill was, for the last several years, was kind of always in and out. I mean, he spent a lot of time away. So there was, the day-to-day doing shows and everything, there was people covering all that stuff. So for a while, there was not.
You like to stay up at his house?
Not any changes, but it was with, SFX attempts to go around and buy, Robert Silverman buying up the various local promoters in a lot of these markets. That really changed the game, right? And being, from my own personal standpoint, just learning how to adapt into that kind of new world, because it didn't happen like all at once. It was a gradual, but
it was a process for sure.
Taking, SFX, after they put that group together, they turned around within a couple of years and sold it to Clear Channel.
Yeah.
And Clear Channel Entertainment, and to me, again, from my vantage point, it was almost like the concert itself, what it was for, was different. Because before, with Bill Graham Presents, and with Bill particularly, the show was pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Well, particularly with Clear Channel, the show became a vehicle for something else. It became a vehicle. Became like a commercial for radio stations. It was like to draw people to their radio stations.
Pretty fair description, yes.
And then the fact that really didn't work out for them. To their credit, they ended up spinning it off. So they took what was Clear Channel Entertainment, spun it off into a standalone, publicly traded corporation that ended up becoming Live Nation. And now it's a whole different ballgame. These are like billion-dollar corporations now. This is not. That's right. This is not your Bill Graham Presents. So learning how to, at least for me, learning how to exist within that world was, the responsibilities became a little bit different, and but it was, like I said, it was different. So
very different, yeah, from where
very
we came
different
from.
And big money. It's the different ways of monetizing concerts and the different elements of concerts.
Yeah.
We talked about when Shoreline was built, that was an attempt by promoters that, they needed more revenue streams. They were looking for more revenue. So they wanted to be able to sell the beer. They wanted to sell the hot dogs or
That's right.
food. They wanted to be able to put the signage up to sell advertising on site. And the monetization has grown exponentially. All the different elements and the way that money is generated within, people coming to a concert,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Way different.
Yeah.
I think, going back,
I
think when I went to the Fillmore, I paid $3.50, right? And you'd see 3 acts, they'd play 2 sets, and that'd be a night, and that would be it. Well, now you're playing hundreds of dollars to go to.
Yeah. I know when we were talking before the show, we both agreed that well, first of all, because of this environment, that it does cause the average fan to have to pick and choose their entertainment, because who can afford to go see Rolling Stones, Metallica, U2?
You have to be selective.
And ZZ Top in a given year. At least most of us would have
to be selective.
Because it's pricey as hell.
Right.
At the same time, you also made a fair point that, the show back in the day compared to what they do now, bringing out the pyro and the LED walls and the lighting and the structure, the superstructure is very, very expensive. The bands are putting,
It's. It goes in different directions. Even with big building, there's bands that can do. It looks like less from what some acts to do. I always thought, the more stuff on stage means the less talent on stage a lot of times.
The more trucks.
A fair assessment. Sometimes.
Not always, but yeah,
it's
a thing.
But for some, it's even nowadays, simplicity. There's simplicity. It's big. It's just bigger. Everything's bigger than what we did back there. But
it looks like Darcy Lewis is checking in on us. Isn't Darcy Lewis the former production manager out at?
She was our production coordinator at Shoreline.
Yeah,
there you go.
I loved her. She's
see who pops in.
Dude, she's adorable and lovely.
She's on the
and
chat.
Always was a treat to go and work with and be around. She just made that place fun. You can't even count the amount of shows. The bridge school stuff we did there alone was really something to kind of warm your heart. It was one of those jobs you really felt like you were doing something good.
It was one of the, to this day, I didn't do, there were 30 bridge schools, 29 of them at Shoreline. There was one. The second one was at Oakland Coliseum. I probably, for most of the time, in the first 20 years, I maybe did one, right? But the last 10, I probably did, and I did all of them. And it was just the greatest experience,
Yeah.
I mean, just the informality, the mingling of artists. And a lot of times artists would come through there. The challenge was the fact that it was all acoustic.
Yes.
And that intimidated a lot of people.
It did. That's true.
They had to, that bass player had to learn how to play an acoustic bass or something. And so a lot of them were intimidated and a little afraid of it. But watching the interaction, because for people that aren't aware, the bridge school, the kids from the school, they're developmentally handicapped children.
Yeah.
They would always sit on stage. That was the other reason why it was acoustic. So just because they were on stage. And certain artists just had the greatest rapport.
That's right.
With these kids. And it was just special because even from my experience of, doing 10 years, you'd see these kids grow up. You'd see them every year and they'd come back. And
That's
it was
right.
just such a special event.
Yeah, beautiful thing. I remember Dave Grohl was particularly, when you talk about rapport with the children, he was excellent with them. I remember one night with Josh Groban and the Smashing Pumpkins did a thing together, and the kid, I think the audience was a little stunned, but the kids just loved it. And there's just so many examples, Tegan and Sarah, and on and on and on. Tony Bennett, Paul McCartney, Pearl Jam. It's just extraordinary.
Yeah, one of the people that had the greatest rapport with these kids, and it's a little surprising, was Brian Wilson.
That is,
Maybe they were on the same wavelength or something.
I was thinking
know,
that. I didn't want to say it. Thank you for that. Made me like you laugh.
It was great. He was great with them.
Extraordinarily talented man. God, he's responsible for a couple of probably the most seminal rock albums ever. Pet Sounds is that's an album that any band wishes they could touch that thing. Extraordinary. We're running a little long. I want to ask you, you're a man that has seen and done in this business. You've really watched the evolution, and for the lack of a better word, of the industry. What do you think the future holds?
Well, immediately, makeup, right? I think all of these Live Nations and the AEGs of the world, they sat doing nothing for a year and a half, year and 3/4, whatever.
Yeah.
So makeup, I don't, the talent that is, we're seeing people leave the stage, right? We're seeing, some of these longtime acts that have played that can draw the big numbers.
That's right.
Are just, they're moving on to the next plane. So I don't really know. Who's going to be able. I think they're going to try and continue to do big shows, whether people will pay the money to go.
Yeah.
That's the question. But the artists that are out there now and the up and coming artists.
There's a couple I can see that are going to feel like the Rolling Stones spot. It's kind of like the Fozers.
The Rolling Stones kind of a thing, but it's like, there's some really good artists out there, but does that play in 40,000?
Yeah. It's a little. I think it's a little bit of a jump ball right now. I'm not exactly sure.
I think this pandemic's kind of thrown everybody for a loop, and
I couldn't agree more.
Everybody's trying to figure it out.
Yeah. No, I really agree with you. At the same time, what we saw in those last 6 months or so since the kind of green light went on, was all these kind of pop-up festivals that were, this now their first year of maybe something that will be annual. And a lot of, particularly in the South and in parts of the East, where there's a slightly different understanding of what's safe behavior and getting together. Has been extraordinary to watch, and a lot of bands, the Godsmacks and Ted Nugent types have went out there and really leaned in on that. The Anthraxes and so on are out there getting that money, and hopefully it all plays out well. This is an industry I love. I think you do as well. I know Bern does. Bern's a diehard music fan, and we want everything to land well. And we did that the Lollapalooza recently, and that done well, very considered and carefully done, massive show. Did not turn into a large super spreader type situation. And so there's templates out there that show we can go forward and do it in a safe way and still have a lot of fun and bring the big shows. So I'm hoping that there's people paying attention to stuff like that, and that we get on top of this and we're able to rejoin in a way that we know and love, our industry. It was an absolute, Ron, I can't say this enough. I really mean it.
Thank you very much.
An absolute honor to have you on the show. I've admired you for years and the work that you've done. You've made our industry a much better place, and no, that's just a fact.
I actually came in saying to myself, I said, this is a man you sit in front of and you actually don't have an opinion. You just sit and listen. You just consume, absorb. You have no alternate ideas. You just take it all in because of such a long history of
yes.
It's been an absolute
I guess
joy.
longevity does have its
It does have its
has its moments, right?
Yeah. One last quick question: are you enjoying retirement?
Under COVID, I mean, it's still there's much that I miss, right? And I would say probably the thing I miss the most are the people, the relationships, and the people that I've known and worked with for years and years. Once this COVID thing kind of gets over, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
But,
Ronnie might be coming back out.
I will say, the one thing I will say that is I don't miss standing at a loading dock at 5 o'clock in the morning, right? Trying to doing a pre-rig or no coffee. No coffee yet.
Oh, that's right. It's too early for coffee.
Too early for coffee.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Darcy's asking if there's a chance that maybe in the future we could do a Ron Bergman part 2. That maybe that's something we would discuss, and I know there's a lot more to consider. And it's hard to
doing nothing else.
A person like yourself who's been doing it for 50
Ron the
solid
series.
years to get it all knocked out in 45 minutes. But we certainly gave it a try. But I would love to have you back if that's something you consider, Ron. It was a treat to have you. Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
Thanks for asking.
You bet, pal. Take care of yourself. Listen, I feel really lucky to be where I'm situated here on this part of the planet, that I'm surrounded by such talented, incredible, accomplished people that they once in a while are nice enough, gracious enough to come in and share their experiences with ourselves here in the shop, in our little studio, and with my audience. I appreciate you guys coming this evening. I know there's 1,000 places between the internet and cable and all these different entertainments, movies, all so on and so forth, that you come and share this time with us. Next week, we're going to do a makeup show. Remember, we had a little problem a couple weeks ago. First one, where we
wish we needed Ron.
A similarly accomplished human being like Ron here.
Yeah.
Jan Landy is just a badass, 51 years in the business. Led Zeppelin. We just named some crazy stuff that he's been involved with. And we're going to do a little makeup show with him on November 4th coming up. And so that's going to be next Thursday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We'd love for you to return. I want to thank all the people that tuned in this evening. I hope you enjoyed our interview with Ron Bergman. We certainly did. We do this every Thursday because we love what we do, and we just want to share the news and talk shop with our friends. So we hope to see you back again next Thursday. Until then, be kind, be good to each other. We'll see you soon. Take care. Good night.